The city of Lagos moved like a restless drum, loud and fast day and night. In the residential area of Ikoyi, behind a white fence with security cameras watching like sharp eyes, stood the mansion of Chief Chuka and his wife, Madame Ifoma. The house had a fountain that never rested, glass that sparkled like a brag, and a staff that changed too often. People whispered that the madame had a hot temper that cut like a sharp blade. Maids never lasted. They arrived with hope and left with tears. When Ada, a young, calm woman from Anambra, rolled her small box through the iron gates, the guards shared a look. They had seen the same hope before, and they already knew how it would end. Ada did not walk like a victim. She was 24 years old, steady-eyed, and carried herself with quiet respect. Tayo, the house manager, read the rules in a serious tone. No visitors, no gossip, no mistakes. Ada nodded and asked only one question. What does Madame like for tea? Tayo looked surprised and replied, she takes green tea in the morning and ginger tea with honey at night. Just then, Madame Ifoma swept in and Ada bowed slightly. Her perfume moved ahead of her. Her posture was perfect. She looked at Ada and said, we will see if you are better than the others. Her tone was soft but cold, like ice cubes that looked pretty until they burnt your tongue. The first week tested her soul. The floors wanted to be mirrors, the kitchen wanted to be a laboratory, and every pillow wanted its exact angle on the couch. Madame Ifoma's moods turned like Lagos weather. Sunshine now, thunder the next minute. She criticized napkin folds, corrected the way Ada set cutlery, and even tapped a glass with her nail just to say it was not shiny enough. It looked like she was impossible to please, but Ada stayed patient. She wrote small notes, listened with attention, and changed her pace to match the house. When she was alone, she whispered simple prayers. God, please give me calm hands. Help me serve well and stay dignified. The guards had a tradition. When a new maid arrived, they would guess how long she would last. Obinna, the head of security, said 2 weeks. The youngest guard, Kene, said 3 if she was strong. Ada greeted them as she walked by, carrying a heavy laundry basket like it was a normal day. In the evening, when the generator hummed and the sea breeze touched the terrace, she sat on her narrow bed and read text messages from her sister. She reminded herself that kindness was not foolishness, that calm was strength, and that sometimes the quiet person is the one who holds the house together. But trouble had a favorite seat in that house, and her name was Nkem. She was Madame's younger cousin, always laughing, always filming short videos for social media, always talking as if the world should be grateful she existed. She looked Ada up and down and smirked. This one is too soft. She would break any minute. Madame's mouth curved, but she said nothing. When Ada brought his smoothie, Nkem collected it without looking up at her or saying thank you. It felt like she was a furniture, but Ada kept her eyes kind. She knew that people revealed their hearts by how they treated those who served them. The mansion was organized, but the air carried secrets. Chief traveled a lot, sometimes coming home with expensive gifts and leaving again before anyone could finish thanking him. Madame spent most of her nights alone, scrolling gossip blogs late into the night. Her eyes were hard, her lips were thin, and her fingers restless. During the day, she gave instructions like commands given to soldiers. Ada followed each one carefully. She also noticed a small tremble under Madame's strength, the kind of tremble people get when they have carried pain for too long. She cooked well, she cleaned well, and she kept her dignity like a lamp that never lost light. Sometimes, Madame Ifoma would find herself thinking of how it all started. Long before anyone called her Madame, she was just a small girl, fondly called Ifi in Enugu. One December morning, her parents, a father pilot and a teacher mother, had left for a wedding in Lagos. They had kissed her forehead and promised to call when they arrived. But the plane left the ground and never came back. News reached the house like a flood. Everything that made sense disappeared. Relatives argued about who would take care of the orphan child. The decision felt like a business transaction. Which home had more space? Who could afford another mouth? Eventually, Ife ended up with her father's elder brother, Uncle Kalu, and his wife, Auntie Nkechi. Uncle Kalu's house was large, but it was not gentle. Auntie Nkechi only smiled when people visited. As soon as the guests left, her smile disappeared, and so did she. The person who controlled the daily rhythm of the house was the household maid, Sister Favor, a tall woman with eyes that could turn warm or cruel in a second. Ife was given a small room near the back, far from the living room laughter. She missed her parents with a pain that had no words. Sister Favor noticed the emptiness and decided to fill it with her own rules. Her voice was sweet to others, but sharp to the child. The first thing looked small from outside. Ife had come back from school one afternoon, very hungry and tired, but her plate of rice and stew was empty. Sister Favor smiled without kindness and said, "I had served it, but you were slow, so I ate it. You can drink Gary. It should keep you full until dinner." Ife reported it to her uncle when he got back that evening, but he just patted her head and told her to stop exaggerating. The following week, Sister Favor poured her tea into the sink because she took too long to finish it. Ife tried again to complain, this time to Auntie Nkechi, who simply warned her to stay respectful to her elders. In that house, the child's voice never weighed enough. No one listened to her complaints, no one cared. And so, bigger wounds followed. One afternoon, when Auntie Nkechi was out, Sister Favor made Ife scrub the kitchen floor twice, calling her lazy. Another day, she locked her outside in the heavy rain, pretending to forget she was in the backyard. The girl caught a cold and shivered all night. When Ife told her uncle that night, Sister Favor stood at the door with a peaceful face and made it look like Ife was fabricating a lie. "Children tell the wildest stories nowadays," she said. "But if she keeps lying, we will have to discipline her." Ife learned something that night, that no one would protect her from the evil maid. A seed of bitterness took root. Ife promised herself that when she grew up, she would never be at the mercy of any maid. She would control the house, set the rules, and make it clear who was in charge. She would never be small again. That promise sat in her chest throughout boarding school, university in Lagos, and her earlier career. When she married Chief Chuka and moved into a world of polished floors and tall fences, the old vow blossomed. In her mind, kindness to a maid was dangerous and undeserving. It opened the door for humiliation. She concluded that it was better to be feared than to be hurt. And so, every maid who entered her house unknowingly stepped into a silent war she had been fighting since she was a child. Back to present day, the house woke up to a loud panic. Madame Ifoma's most treasured emerald bracelet, a gift Chief had bought for her was missing from the display case in her walk-in closet. The glass door was not broken, but it was unlocked. Staff stood in line in the foyer while Madame paced like a storm. Inkem sat on the arm of a couch, lips curved in a smile that did not touch her eyes. She instructed the guards to search all the rooms. Obinna, the head of security, looked at Madame as if asking for approval. She nodded, and they proceeded to search all rooms for the missing bracelet. They opened the drawers, checked under the beds, looked inside shoes. In Ada's small locker, they found neat clothes, a folded wrapper, and a notebook with written Bible verses. But in the corner of that locker, wrapped in tissue paper, was something that shocked the room. It was the emerald bracelet. Inkem exclaimed like she had seen a miracle. Madame's face went cold. Ada stared at the bracelet as if it was a snake pretending to sleep. "Madame," she said softly, "that is not mine. I did not touch your jewelry." Her voice was calm in a room that wanted drama. "Call the police," Madame said, her words dropping like stones. Obinna looked uneasy. Tayo shifted his weight. Inkem folded her arms. A look of satisfaction spread across her face. But Ada did not panic. She just asked for one thing, that they check the footage for the camera planted near the kitchen corridor. "Last night when the generator went off for a few minutes, I heard footsteps," Ada explained. Inkem rolled her eyes and clicked her tongue. "So you see ghosts now, right?" she mocked. But Obina's attention sharpened. The generator outage had confused his own schedule. Like someone had intentionally turned it off to hide their action. What they did not know was that the cameras had inbuilt batteries that could last up to 2 hours after power outage. He believed that the footage from the camera would unravel the mystery. Madame hesitated, but eventually she agreed. They moved to the small security room that smelled like warm electronics. On the screens, the corridors looked quiet and empty. Obinna rewound to the time of the outage. The timestamps shook and then they steadied. A shadow crossed from the kitchen towards the service corridor. The figure was not tall and it moved with confidence. In a freeze frame, the person opened the back exit door and went outside the house. But because it was dark, it was difficult to make out who the person was. Obinna leaned back and requested to check the footage for the dash cam. He had installed it a few months ago to heighten security for his boss. But Madame was fast losing her patience. She announced a deadline, her voice flat. "If this is not resolved by lunch, the police will come for Ada." The staff lowered their eyes, but Obinna went ahead to explore the dashcam footage. And there she was, Inkem, slipping into the back seat during the generator outage, holding the emerald bracelet up to the light like a trophy and smiling to herself. Gasps filled the room, but Ada stood still. Madame Informa stared at the screen, her lips parted in disbelief. "Inkem? Why would you do this?" Inkem's body stiffened. She tried to smirk, but the room's eyes burnt through her. "Fine," she said at last. "I took it." The words felt heavy, but she wasn't done. "You have always had everything, Ifoma. Money, beauty, and the chief's attention. And when I asked you to sponsor my trip to the UK, just one chance to change my life, you said no. You said I should work for it. From that day, I promised I will make you feel lost, just like I did." Her voice trembles with an old wound. The confession poured out like a floodgate opening. Inkem admitted that she had been behind Informer's little troubles for years, whispering to people to avoid Informer at events, feeding gossip blogs, even persuading an old tailor to ruin Madame's gown for a gala but make it look like an accident. "You walk around like a queen," Inkem said bitterly, "but you do not know how many people want to see you kneel." Then this good-for-nothing came along, being all sweet to you like you are some saint. I hated it. I hated her for showing you kindness when all I wanted was to see you suffer. Ada kept her gaze steady. Nkem's eyes glittered as she continued. So, I planted the bracelet in her wardrobe. I knew you would believe it. You've never liked maids. I thought it would tear that innocent little saint marks off her face. Madame's voice was low and shaky as she spoke. You mean you would destroy someone's life just to hurt me? Nkem shrugged, though her face cracked. You destroyed mine first when you chose to close the door on me, she said. The room was heavy with silence, every person absorbing the cruelty behind the confession. Obina stepped forward, holding the footage, still on the screen like an unblinking witness. This is enough proof, he said. Madame's eyes didn't leave Nkem's face. I did not want to destroy your life, she said slowly. I just refused to feed your laziness. I would have sponsored the trip, but I wanted you to work for it. But now I see. Your heart is already set on revenge. Nkem's smirk faded completely. She looked smaller now, drained of the power she carried. Madame turned to Ada. I am sorry, she said softly, in front of everyone. It was the first time anyone in the house had heard those words from her lips. The bracelet was returned to its glass case, but the room still felt heavy with betrayal. The staff avoided Nkem's gaze as she left the house in silence, her perfume lingering like an unwelcomed memory. Ada stood quietly, her hands folded in front of her. Madame turned fully towards her, the apology still fresh on her lips. I am sorry, she repeated, softer this time. Ada nodded, her eyes warm but steady. She didn't rub her innocence in. She didn't gloat. That quiet grace sank deep into Madame Ifoma's mind. It was strange. After years of keeping her walls high, she found herself wanting to lower them for this maid. In the days that followed, Ada continued her work as though nothing had happened. She polished the marble floors until they shone. She ironed Madame's clothes with perfect precision. She served meals with quiet elegance. But now, she also left small touches here and there. Fresh flowers on the breakfast table, ginger tea when she sensed Madame's mood was low, and a neatly folded shawl when the air conditioning felt too cold. She never mentioned the bracelet, never reminded Madame of the injustice. That restraint felt unfamiliar to Ifoma. In her world, kindness was always calculated, but this was different. One late afternoon, Madame found herself pausing in the hallway, watching Ada demonstrate to the younger cleaner on how to fold linen. There was no impatience in her voice, only a gentle rhythm, like teaching was as natural as breathing. Something in that moment pressed on Ifoma's chest. Not guilt exactly, but the ache of recognizing goodness when she never expected it. She thought of Nkem's words, her bitterness, her need to hurt. Then she thought of Ada, standing accused and calm. For the first time in years, Madame wondered if she had been wrong about the way she wielded her power. That evening, when the city's lights glittered outside, Madame called Ada to sit with her in the lounge. Why didn't you fight back? Why didn't you shout or cry or try to make me feel guilty? She asked. Ada smiled faintly as she replied, I didn't see the need to, because I know that truth defends itself. And shouting doesn't make people hear you. It only makes them try to defend their own noise. Madame leaned back, absorbing the words. They weren't quoted in flattery. They were simply true. In that stillness, something in her began to shift. Not a collapse of walls, but the quiet unlocking of a door she had kept bolted for years. A few nights later, as the rain whispered against the glass, Madame sat in her night robe, her hair loose, her makeup washed away. Again, she called Ada to sit with her as she began to speak slowly. Do you know why I have always been hard on maids? Ada shook her head, and then the story spilled out. The plane crash, the move to Uncle Carlo's house, Sister Favor's cruelty, the stolen meals, the punishment, the cold rain, and the disbelief from the very people who were supposed to protect her. Her voice cracked as she admitted, I promised myself I would never be the small one again. I convinced myself that when it came to maids, fear was safer than kindness. Ada listened in silence, not rushing to fill the space. When Ifoma finished, she spoke softly. Madam, I am sorry for what you went through. Sister Favor hurt a child who had no one to defend her, and I am sure she will get her reward one day. But not every maid is Sister Favor. Holding on to that vow might have kept you from being hurt again, but it also kept you from being loved by those who could have been loyal to you. Ifoma looked away, blinking fast. I didn't think of it that way, she said. Ada continued. Pain makes us build walls, but those walls also keep out the light. That night, something shifted inside Madame Ifoma. The next morning, sunlight found its way into the mansion's corners. Madame did something she hadn't done in years. She greeted Musa the gardener and asked about his family. He nearly dropped the water can in surprise. Later, she thanked Tayo for a well-organized staff schedule. The staffs exchanged glances, unsure if they should be pleased or worried. This was not the madame they knew. That evening, she went into the kitchen and asked Ada to teach her how to fold napkins into fans like she did. Tayo walked by and stared like he had seen a ghost. Obinna, passing through, smirked quietly to himself. The air in the house had shifted. The tension that once sat in every corner was loosening. When Chief returned from a business trip, he noticed the difference instantly. The house felt lighter, like someone had thrown open unseen windows. Madame seemed softer, more present. He watched her in surprise as she showed genuine curiosity while she spoke to Ada about her sister's new baby. That night, on the terrace, he said, I like this piece. She exhaled and replied, Me too. I have been drowning in revenge for so long, but now I just want peace. Chief nodded slowly. They didn't solve everything in one evening, but they agreed to try therapy quietly, something neither of them had ever considered before. Months went by and the new rhythm held. Staff stayed longer. Mistakes became lessons, not landmines. Ada got a new responsibility to train domestic workers on rights, savings, safety, and self-worth. There were no flashy announcements, just genuine work. She told them, kindness is not weakness. It costs patience and courage. Madame watched from the back, not as a boss, but as a woman humbled in learning. One bright Sunday after church, Madame and Ada strolled towards the estate gate. Children rode their bicycles happily. The fountain sang in the distance. Obinna saluted with a knowing smile. Then, Madame stopped and faced Ada. You changed this house, she said. You changed me. Ada smiled. No, Madame, you changed yourself. I only held the light while you looked in. And there, in the sunlight, two women from different worlds stood as equals, not in status, but in humanity. The walls were down, the door was open, and kindness had done what power never could.